Imagine you've just been invited to, like, a billionaire's centuries-old estate for the weekend. You've prepped for this, right?
Oh, heavily prepped.
Exactly. You're wearing the perfectly understated luxury watch.
Yeah.
You drove a subtly expensive car, and you've memorized exactly which obscure vintage of wine to order at dinner.
You're doing great so far.
Right. You navigate the evening flawlessly. But then the moment you go upstairs to bed, you fail the ultimate wealth test simply because you don't know what a blanket cover is.
It's this sudden jarring realization that you're an outsider. You're trying to navigate a space where the insiders communicate through this language of entirely invisible social cues.
And that is exactly what we're talking about today. We are decoding one of the most intricate, highly codified rule books in existence.
It really is.
We're doing a deep dive into the world of high society and the hidden mechanics of social climbing. And we're using this fascinating, really candid book as our guide. It's called The Art of Social Climbing by Lincoln Kearney.
A great read, honestly.
It is. And for you listening, we're approaching this strictly as like an anthropological study. We're not here to judge. We're putting human behavior under the microscope to figure out how these elite tribes actually operate.
Which is really the only analytical lens that works here. I mean, people often look at the incredibly wealthy, those old money families with the sprawling estates, and they assume the insular behavior is just dysfunction or snobbery.
Yeah, just being rich and mean.
Right. But the source material presents a much more compelling structural argument. They function within an exclusive ecosystem governed by rules that have a very specific socio-evolutionary purpose.
To preserve a hierarchy.
Exactly, to preserve the hierarchy and protect resources. So our mission in this deep dive is to isolate the actual mechanisms that separate the ins from the outs.
So if I were trying to break into high society, which sounds exhausting, by the way, my instinct would be to signal my wealth immediately. You buy the massive yacht, throw around the black card, make sure everyone knows you've arrived.
The flashy consumption route.
Yeah, the movie version of it.
Yeah.
But the author argues the absolute foundation of breaking into this world has nothing to do with that. It starts with, of all things, manners. Like specifically how you treat the people who are serving you.
The source text draws a really hard line here. Good manners are the absolute bedrock of entry.
Wow.
Yeah, the ultimate tell of a fake someone desperately trying to project importance is a display of arrogance towards staff.
Because they think that's what powerful people do.
Exactly. If you're sitting in the dining room of an exclusive country club and you, loudly dress down a waiter for a delayed appetizer, or you snap your fingers to summon a bartender, you're instantly broadcasting that you do not belong.
But help me understand the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
If you're surrounded by billionaires, why do they care how you treat the bartender? I mean, I would assume the gatekeepers of this society are judging you on your portfolio.
Right.
Not your interactions with the busboy.
It comes down to the intelligence network of high society.
The intelligence network.
Yeah, the staff are often the true gatekeepers. We're talking about housekeepers, estate managers, drivers who have worked for these old money families for decades.
Ah, so they're fully entrenched.
Right. They're fiercely loyal to their employers, they communicate constantly with one another, and they have highly honed instincts for spotting imposters.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you treat the staff terribly, or conversely, if you try to, pry into your host's private lives by gossiping with their housekeeper, they will absolutely rat you out.
They're like an immune system.
That's a great way to put it. They act as an immune system for the family, alerting them to exactly who you are when the social masks come off.
So they are essentially the security clearance test.
Precisely. And the author shares a wonderfully illustrative anecdote about this dynamic.
Oh, the stacking plates one.
Yes. So a woman from an established family hires a new housekeeper because she hosts this relentless schedule of dinner parties.
Right.
And on her very first day, the housekeeper asks her new employer a really simple diagnostic question. She says, "Does we stack? Or is we class?"
That is just incredible. I love that. The housekeeper is actively evaluating the sophistication of the woman signing her paychecks.
She is testing the cultural waters. And the answer, of course, is we is class.
We is class.
Right, because you never stack dirty plates on top of each other at a formal dining table to clear them quickly. You clear them individually, properly, without rushing.
So it's about signaling an ingrained, effortless consideration. It's like a secret tell in poker.
A poker tell, exactly.
Because anyone with a credit line can buy a luxury suit. But if you have to consciously think about being polite, or if you only perform politeness for the host while completely ignoring the people clearing the plates, you fail the test.
Because the effort itself is what gives you away. The effort is a massive liability. Old money is taught from birth that true class is invisible. You don't perform it, you just inhabit it.
Okay, so manners get you in the door. You pass the waiter test. You didn't stack your plates. But I imagine that's just the baseline, right? Once you're actually sitting in the drawing room, how do they test you on a more, intimate level?
That's when the scrutiny instantly shifts to the subtle tells of your personal life, starting with your vocabulary and your background.
The background check.
Yeah. The cardinal sin of the social climber, according to the text, is reinventing yourself. You never lie about your roots, and you absolutely never fake an accent.
Right. The book specifically warns against putting on that fake Boston Brahmin lockjaw accent to sound sophisticated.
Yeah, that is a huge red flag for them.
For those listening who might not be familiar with that specific regional accent, what does that sound like?
It's that very old world, tight-jawed, New England aristocrat sound. Think of old audio clips of Franklin D. Roosevelt or Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, right. Very specific.
It's an accent that historically signaled generations of closed-circle prep school breeding. So if you grew up in a blue-collar Midwestern town and you suddenly start, dropping your R's and speaking from the back of your throat at a cocktail party, it's social suicide.
Because they'll find out.
This world is remarkably small. They go to the same boarding schools, the same summer enclaves. They will dig into your lineage and find out you're faking it.
But wait, isn't the entire mythology of the American social climber built on reinvention? I mean, the whole Great Gatsby narrative is about burying your past to fit into a new elite class.
True.
So if they want you to fit in, why is lying about your modest past the ultimate sin?
It revolves around the psychology of old money, which prioritizes authenticity and ease above almost everything else.
Ease, no effort.
Yeah, exactly. The established elite would infinitely prefer to socialize with someone who openly owns their modest blue-collar roots, but has, taken the time to acquire polish, rather than someone whose entire persona is a fragile, insecure fabrication.
Because insecurity makes old money profoundly uncomfortable.
It really does.
If you're constantly trying to hide who you are, it means you care too much. You're sweating, and the sweat is vulgar.
Exactly. It shows your status is conditional, whereas theirs is unconditional. And this aversion to showing effort extends deep into their vocabulary, too.
Oh, the words you're not allowed to use.
Right. You never use the word mansion. You never use the word estate unless you are actively talking to a real estate agent about a transaction.
You just call it a house.
You simply call it a house, even if that house happens to have 40 rooms and a bowling alley.
Naturally.
And furthermore, you never describe someone as being wealthy. You say they have money.
The understatement is the flex.
The understatement is a defense mechanism, really, to downplay the stark reality of the wealth. And these subtle, unspoken standards extend even to the guest room linens. Which brings us back to the blanket cover you mentioned at the start of our deep dive.
Yes, the blanket cover test. Because years ago, the text notes, society tested a climber's refinement by observing if they knew how to use a finger bowl at a formal dinner.
Right, but I don't think I've ever seen a finger bowl outside of a period drama on television.
Me neither. They're totally obsolete.
So the author argues the modern equivalent of the finger bowl test is knowing to use a blanket cover.
And what exactly is that?
It's a simple piece of fabric, usually made of seersucker, which is this lightweight puckered cotton that is placed between the actual blanket and the bedspread.
When I first read about this in the source material, I was genuinely baffled. Why is a piece of puckered cotton the ultimate test of high society?
The logic is rooted in hygiene and invisible standards of domestic care. A bare blanket is considered somewhat unhygienic in these circles. I mean, someone else might have touched it or a dog might have laid on it.
Gross, I guess.
Right. So a freshly laundered, unpretentious blanket cover signals that you understand the nuanced, private standards of generational domestic refinement.
Wow.
If a guest does not know what a blanket cover is or questions why it's there, it marks them as someone raised outside the ecosystem.
That transforms a simple weekend visit into an absolute minefield.
Every detail is a tripwire.
And speaking of disastrous weekend visits, the source text shares a story about a guest from Tennessee that perfectly illustrates how easily these cultural wires get crossed.
The squirrel incident, a catastrophic misunderstanding of cultural context.
It's total disaster. So for you listening, this gentleman from Tennessee is visiting his fiance's very established old money family in Connecticut.
Right, high stakes.
They're sitting on the terrace of this beautiful home, and he sees all these gray squirrels running across the manicured lawn. He casually mentions to the estate's housekeeper that where he grew up, squirrels are considered a rustic delicacy.
Oh, no.
and he asks if she would cook them if he went out and shot a few.
And the housekeeper, whose primary directive is to be accommodating to the family's guests, simply agrees.
Yes. So dinner rolls around, the family sits down in the formal dining room, the silver covers are lifted, and they're served the garden squirrels.
I can't even imagine.
The family is absolutely horrified. People are practically fleeing the table with napkins clamped over their mouths.
It's just brilliant.
The guests genuinely thought he was providing a charming regional treat, but he basically assassinated and served the family's backyard pets.
What that anecdote beautifully highlights is the danger of assuming high society is a monolith. It is highly regional.
Very regional.
The rural southern charm that might win over a hunting lodge in Georgia translates to absolute barbarism at a centuries-old estate in Connecticut. You can't just learn one rule book. You have to read the specific room and the specific geography you're trying to infiltrate.
Okay, so assuming you survive the weekend, you have the manners, you know the vocabulary, you understand the linen situation, and you leave the wildlife alone.
A good start.
Once you actually start laying down roots, how do you set up your physical environment? Because if you strike it rich, the immediate impulse is to buy the biggest, newest, most technologically advanced house in the most exclusive gated community.
Which is exactly how you signal that your money was printed yesterday.
Right.
The text explicitly warns against the shiny and the new. When acquiring property, you seek out established, often quieter neighborhoods. And more importantly, you're looking for an aesthetic the author calls patina.
Patina. That idea that your environment shouldn't look like a high-end showroom.
Exactly. If you go to an expensive designer and buy a perfectly matching brand new living room set, it screams new money. Old money prefers a curated collection of what they call brown furniture, antiques, rich woods, slightly worn rugs.
It has to look inherited.
You want pieces that look as though they've been handed down through 4 generations of your family, even if you secretly acquired them at a quiet estate auction just last Tuesday.
It makes me think of the culture around vintage band t-shirts.
Oh, how so?
Well, you can walk into a fast fashion mall store right now and buy a stiff, brand new shirt with a 1980s rock logo on it. Everyone looking at you knows you just bought it with a credit card.
Right.
But if you spend the time, and usually significantly more money, to track down a genuinely faded, paper-thin, perfectly worn-in tour shirt from 1984, it signals that you have history with the culture. Old money decorating is the billionaire version of the vintage band tee. It's about signaling that your wealth has history.
That is a perfect translation of the mechanism at play. It's the aesthetics of permanence in a world where money is fleeting.
Permanence, yeah.
And that desire for permanence extends directly to how they spend their free time. The ultimate social ladders are not corporate boards, they are hobbies and charities.
Oh, the charity circuit.
Becoming a hospital volunteer, joining a museum's acquisitions committee, or serving on a botanical garden board, that is how you actually integrate. But there's a catch.
There's always a catch.
You can't just write a massive check and buy a seat at the table. You actually have to do the administrative boots-on-the-ground work.
No slacking allowed.
Yeah.
If you join the gala committee and you don't pull your weight with the logistics, word spreads through the intelligence network instantly and your climb is over.
Because philanthropy in these circles operates as a shadow government. It's where the actual networking, alliance building, and social sorting happens. And alongside charitable boards, there is a deep, almost obsessive culture of collecting.
Oh, the text highlights some wild examples of this. Like J.K. Lillard III, he collected so many antique cars. He essentially had to establish a museum in a massive shaker barn. Or Doris Duke, who poured her immense fortune into creating these massive public greenhouse gardens on her New Jersey farm. But the author is very specific that there are rules to collecting.
Very strict rules.
You collect art, you collect cars, you collect rare books. You do not collect mass-produced, tacky items. The book specifically calls out Cupid dolls as a disqualifier.
And we have to look at the underlying mechanism there. Why are vintage cars acceptable, but Cupid dolls, which were mass-produced, early 20th century novelty carnival prizes, unacceptable?
Because they're cheap.
It's about what the objects represent. Art, architecture, rare automobiles. They possess historical provenance and cultural permanence. They require vast amounts of capital and specific knowledge to maintain. Cupid dolls represent commercial consumerism and fleeting pop culture.
I see.
Old money always wants to align itself with history, never with mass commerce.
That makes total sense. They're building a legacy, not a toy store. And where they choose to display that legacy, especially when vacationing, is highly strategic.
You do not just buy a beachfront mansion in Palm Beach because the weather is nice. The text advises a much more cautious approach. You rent first.
Renting. Really?
You find these incredibly insular old guard enclaves, places like Fisher's Island in New York or Hobie Sound in Florida. You lease a property for a season to test the waters. If the local establishment grimaces when you mention you're looking to buy, you quietly pack your bags and find another beach.
Because if you drop $20 million on a beach house and then realize the local country club will never admit you and none of your neighbors will attend your dinner parties, you now own a very expensive, very lonely piece of real estate.
Exactly. The social ecosystem is paramount to the physical property.
Now, building that ecosystem, the slow climb, through renting real estate, buying brown furniture, volunteering for decades on museum boards, it sounds exhausting. It takes a lifetime.
It does.
The text knows there's a shortcut, but it warns it's the most perilous path of all, marrying up.
Ah, yes. The high-risk, high-reward strategy of social climbing. When you marry into old money, you are not just entering a family. You are attempting to merge with a fortified institution.
And when it goes wrong, it is spectacular. The author shares a brutal case study of this, which he calls the Lil Abner wedding.
This story is hard to even believe.
There's this brilliant, highly refined woman from a wealthy, established family. She falls in love with a man she works with at a finance firm. He doesn't come from money or society, but they're in love, so her family agrees to throw them a massive, elegant country club wedding.
The stage is set for a catastrophic clash of cultures.
It's a total collision. The groom's family arrives for the wedding weekend, driving a pickup truck, pulling a camper.
A camper?
And they proceed to park the camper directly on the bride's family's manicured lawn.
Oh, ma.
And it escalates from there. For the formal rehearsal dinner, the groom's mother and sisters actually raid the bride's personal closet and show up to the country club wearing the bride's own clothes.
The sheer panic the bride's family must have experienced. We have to view this through the lens of a corporate merger. Marriages in this sphere are rarely just romantic unions. They're mergers of cultural capital.
Right.
The groom's family completely violated the boundaries of property and decorum that the bride's family relies on for stability. If the cultures are that incompatible, the merger fails. And the text notes that, sadly, the marriage ended in divorce a few years later.
But the author also provides the flip side, a masterclass in how to survive the merger.
Yeah.
The story of the shunned mistress in the 1930s.
Oh, this is a great one.
A scion of a great fortune keeps a mistress, she gets pregnant, and he does the honorable thing and marries her. High society is deeply scandalized. They close ranks and completely shut her out of their drawing rooms.
She is utterly exiled.
But then, tragically, the scion dies of a heart attack on an airplane. The former mistress inherits absolutely everything, the vast fortune, the properties, the resources. And instead of begging the society gatekeepers for acceptance, she simply ignores their snubs.
She just goes to work.
Yep. She expertly manages the fortune, grows the wealth, and begins executing high-profile philanthropic work. She starts entertaining military generals and visiting the White House. Eventually, she forces high society to respect her because she amassed too much cultural and financial power to be ignored.
She understood that if she couldn't win their game, she would just buy the board.
Exactly.
She leveraged her resources perfectly, but that is a rare victory. More often, outsiders fall into the EOS trope mentioned in the text, the evil old stepmother.
The infamous Aunt Olivia.
Exactly. The author's uncle married a woman named Olivia who tried desperately to climb the social ladder, but whose character and motives were highly questionable. She alienated the established family members, orchestrated getting her own husband fired from the family business, and despite her aggressive efforts, never quite fit into the circle.
So if these families are effectively impenetrable fortresses, heavily guarded against outsiders like Aunt Olivia, how does someone successfully survive the merger without losing their own identity?
The mechanism of survival here is absolute loyalty. The author makes this very clear. The only way to survive the crushing skepticism of an old money family is to prove that you and your spouse are an unbreakable, united front.
It's all about loyalty.
Old money is inherently suspicious of outsiders' motives. They assume everyone is after the resources. If you can demonstrate that your loyalty is strictly to the partnership and not to the wealth, you slowly disarm their defenses.
It requires the discipline of a political alliance. But observing all of this, the discipline, the loyalty, the mastery of the blanket covers, and the brown furniture, leads us to the ultimate cruel paradox of the social climb.
The double standard.
Yes. The climber has to be absolutely flawless to move up. But the people who are already at the top, the established old guard, they are allowed to be complete, utter disasters in public.
This is the critical distinction between being weird and being eccentric. If you're working class or new money, behaving bizarrely makes you weird or unstable. If you have $1 billion in a lineage dating back to the Mayflower, behaving bizarrely simply makes you eccentric.
The examples in the text are legendary. There is the matriarch who decided she needed to move a priceless painting from her New York townhouse to her country estate. Did she hire climate-controlled professional fine art movers? No.
Of course not.
She and her housekeeper strapped this priceless masterpiece to the roof of her everyday station wagon with twine. She drives into the Lincoln Tunnel, the wind catches it, the painting flies off, and gets run over by multiple commercial trucks before she can stop.
And the aftermath is what defines the class. She simply retrieves the shredded canvas and sends it off to a museum for restoration. It's treated as a minor, amusing hiccup rather than a display of staggering incompetence.
Or the incredibly wealthy heiress whose living expenses were managed by her law firm. She lived in a basic, unassuming ranch house and shopped for her daily wardrobe at Kmart. The author notes she looked like a vagrant.
Right.
But then she takes a trip to New York, buys a $27,000 designer Norell sable coat, and proceeds to just wear it casually over her cheap Kmart clothes.
A magnificent, almost aggressive flex of status.
And the most telling anecdote of all, a prominent gentleman is attending a polite, formal cocktail party in Philadelphia. For reasons known only to him, he picks up a heavy antique wing chair, marches across the room, sets it down forcefully, and accidentally cracks the wooden leg.
Out of nowhere.
He doesn't even notice what he's done. And the hostess, she says absolutely nothing. She just prays he doesn't sit in it and crash to the floor, and she secretly sends the chair out for repair the very next morning.
And here's the analytical core of why that double standard exists. Why does the hostess say nothing to the man who broke her antique chair? Because the old guard status is unconditional.
Unconditional.
They belong inherently because of who they are, not what they do. A social climber status is entirely conditional. It's a performance being constantly graded. If a climber cracks the chair, it's proof they don't know how to navigate the physical space of wealth, and they're exiled. If the Duke cracks the chair, well, the chair simply shouldn't have been in the Duke's way.
It perfectly mirrors the dynamic of getting tenure as a university professor.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. When you're the new adjunct, the outsider trying to secure a permanent job, you show up early to every single faculty meeting in a perfectly tailored suit. You are terrified of making a single procedural mistake. But the moment you are granted tenure, you can show up to teach your graduate seminar in sweatpants and sandals, and the administration can't do a thing about it. Unconditional status means you have earned the right to stop trying.
The leniency afforded to the eccentric rich is the ultimate proof of their structural power. They are no longer required to follow the rules because they own the board the game is being played on.
As we wrap up this analysis, I want to connect this directly back to you listening. You might be thinking, this is a fascinating look at how billionaires act, but I have absolutely no intention of joining a high society country club in Connecticut, so how does this apply to my life?
A fair question.
The reality is, this anthropological rulebook exists in every single human ecosystem. Every corporate office you walk into, every local PTA meeting you attend, every niche online hobby group you join. They all have an old guard operating by unspoken rules, and they all have new money trying desperately to fit in.
That is so true.
The blanket covers and the brown furniture might change, but the underlying human behavior of signaling and gatekeeping is identical.
We are fundamentally tribal creatures. We're constantly assessing who belongs to the in-group and who is an imposter. Recognizing these mechanisms, whether it's decoding how someone treats a subordinate, analyzing the vocabulary they choose, or observing how they react to a broken chair, it equips you with a profound advantage in navigating absolutely any social structure you encounter.
We always like to leave you with a final thought to mull over after the deep dive, something to take away and apply to the world around you.
And looking at this world of invisible rules brings up a fascinating modern dilemma. We established that the ultimate hallmark of old money high society is invisible class, downplaying wealth, hiding the effort, and keeping your private life fiercely guarded behind closed doors and loyal staff.
Right.
But we now live in the age of social media, where mass exposure, oversharing, and performing your lifestyle for an audience is the ultimate cultural currency. Which raises the question for you to consider, can true high society, with its secret blanket covers and quiet brown furniture, even survive the digital age? Or are we watching the extinction of these hidden rules, replaced by a world where the only thing that matters is how loudly you can broadcast your climb?
It's a fascinating collision.
Hmm.
The people who desperately want to be seen crashing into a culture that views being seen as the ultimate vulgarity.
Yeah.
Next time you walk into a new room or scroll through your feed, pay close attention. You might just spot the invisible rules playing out right in front of you.